Om Shanti.
Stephan Conradi, it is so wonderful to have you at this special edition of Ask the Author for the Magic and Miracles book.
Hello, yeah, thank you very much for having me for the talk.
Well, I'm so grateful that you have opened up and shared some very deep stories in Magic and Miracles, but also in our other book, Life After Trauma.
Yes, it was a nice experience, and I have to say the Magic and Miracles one was very special to me because the thing that happened was so weird and strange that I thought, wow, this is worth writing it down and sharing.
Yeah, well, why don't we just jump right into it? Because you and I actually share something in common. We've both had an out-of-body experience, but yours really was a knockout. So the title of Stephan's chapter is A Birth, a Knockout, and a Miracle, all within 4 days. So tell us a little bit about what happened when you were doing this bike race.
Yeah, it was a race that I joined the last years all the time. It was usually in springtime, and it's an outdoor running race here off-road in the village where I live. So I knew the track, I knew the conditions, I knew that it would be quite hot because the timing was not perfect, I think chosen by the event organizers because we are on Mallorca and it's getting hotter and hotter during the day. So, and there was also very common a delay when the race started. So, but my problem was I didn't drink and eat enough prior to the race. Although I know all these things, but I was quite nervous and quite stressed already days and weeks before the race. So I just, didn't prepare myself well enough. And
So just to give people context, this is in Mallorca, Spain. And when you say it was getting hot, what time of year was it? Was it the summertime?
That was in May.
Okay.
Sorry. Yes, it was in May. It was the beginning of May. It was the first week in May when we're talking about already like 25 degrees plus when the race was starting.
Wow. So for us Americans, that's almost near 90 degrees for us. And it was a running race. Sorry, I misspoke. I said it was a bike race. So go ahead.
Yeah. So when I started, I took it quite easy because I knew I was not regularly running before, which is okay. It was only 10 kilometers. So, and also the fact that I knew the race, I usually, don't start too quick because that is just not really smart. So, but I was following some people who were on a similar speed. And I also knew that the hardest bit was the last third because that was a constant climb and there was no shade at all, which made it tricky. And on top of that, I knew that on this bit there was no water provided.
Yeah, so you're running, you're a little dehydrated, it's hot, and what was that knockout?
The knockout happened when actually my brain and my, let's say, enthusiasm kicked in, which was saying, hey, you can follow this guy because you are kind of on a similar, I assumed I was on a similar fitness level, which I wasn't. So I followed the guy and I had in my mind, hey, I will do this for my little girls because they were at the track. And one was still unborn, but ready to come, and the other one, was just at the race and yelling at me and giving me positive energy. So when I was hitting the last third, I realized that I was coming closer to the guy that I was actually wanted to keep up with. But then I realized that I was fainting, my legs were getting weak, and I couldn't really stay on the track. It was a wide track, like 3 meters wide probably, and I actually fell on the stony ground.
Wow. So you fell, you lost consciousness, and then you left your body.
Yes, that was something that had never appeared or happened to me before. So the first moments, I think the very first moment, I was just completely knocked off, and like a normal knockout, I would say. I had this plenty of times when I had bicycle accidents when I was younger. So this was not so special. But then I was coming back to consciousness and losing consciousness, I think, a couple of times, because I realized there were a crowd of people around me. They, one of the guys had some water that he was just pouring into my face. But then there was, after that, I realized myself laying down, and I saw my legs, and I was kind of floating just above my body. But I didn't know that this was me. I didn't know that this was my body. I just realized, okay, there's someone. And I had pictures flickering in my head of the past, of myself, of the future. But I was at complete ease.
So you felt no pain. You weren't scared at all. You're just like, oh, there's a body laying there. And you didn't recognize it as yourself.
Exactly. I didn't recognize that it was me. I just saw myself. And as you said, it was a very, very comfortable feeling. As if everything was just happy and great and in balance. Yeah.
And then what happened next?
Well, the next thing that I realized was that my body was moved. And so after all this, I put these pieces together, and I realized, okay, this was the moment when I was moved from a private car that was driving into the mountains because the ambulance couldn't reach that area. So that was the moment when I was taken out of the private car and moved into the ambulance. And then I got an injection into my arm, and I was feeling that. But still, I didn't reconnect. So I was laying then in the ambulance car, and I was looking at the ceiling, and this looked all really strange to me. But I realized that there were people in that car next to me, because I heard people chatting. And then I realized I heard one of the guys asking me in English, "What's your name and how old are you?" And no, where do you come from? He didn't ask my name. And I said, I'm 97 years old and from Bulgaria. And I've really...
where did that come from?
I've no idea. I have been together in my school time with a Bulgarian girl. And I have been in Bulgaria, but no, I have no idea why this came out of my mouth. And I really don't know. So
that's strange, very strange. And so, were you conscious all the way to the hospital?
I would say this was something in between, because I still didn't reconnect to my body, because I didn't feel me. So I saw the ceiling. I had the sensation that I was moved, but very slowly. And I've seen the ceiling, of course, all the time, because I was laying on my back, and had the impression that this journey in that vehicle would never end, because it seemed to be a very long time.
Yeah.
And the very first the real reconnection, I would call it, was when I woke up in the consultant room of the hospital.
Uh-huh.
So I realized when we arrived somehow, because I was moved again, I was still laying down, but I saw some kind of a door or garage, and then I have been rolled into the consultant room. And then when I was sitting there, they put me upright in a stool, in a chair. Then I all of a sudden realized, oh, I know these running pants, and oh, this must be my legs, and oh, my arms. I looked at my arms and everything seemed fine. I thought, oh, okay, so I was kind of waking up at that moment.
Yeah. Very interesting. And at that point, were you okay being back in your body? Was there any pain? Was there any fear?
Well, I felt my feet. They were a little bit painful, but they took my shoes off. So this was just a very brief moment, but I felt really well. And then the next moment, Caroline with a big belly came in, and I thought, okay, everything is cool. And then I was very relaxed, to be honest, really relaxed.
Wow. But according to your story, I'm not going to give away everything in the book. I certainly want people to read your chapter in the book, because I think these other scenes that you saw were like really trippy. But one of the things that was interesting was the doctors wanted to keep you.
Yes.
And your pregnant Caroline the next day said, sorry, I'm in labor.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So I was a bit surprised that they wanted to keep me. I thought, okay, a couple of hours to control maybe my blood pressure, breathing and whatever. But they said, no, you need to go into the intensive care unit. We want to monitor you the full night. And I said, well, yeah, if you think it should be done, of course I will do so. And next day I thought, okay, and I was asking, may I leave? And they said, no, you have to stay, and the doctor needs to see you again, and the doctor will decide if you stay or not. So they kept me another night, a second one, and then it must have been maybe around 5 o'clock-ish in the morning, I got the call that the contraction started. And that made me realize, okay, I need to check out myself, because we better go to the hospital.
Right, you were not going to miss the delivery of your second baby girl.
Yes.
Well, I think it's awesome. I think one of the other things about your story that I can certainly relate to is that was one kind of miraculous and very strange occurrence, right? I mean, certainly people have had accidents and they leave their body, but you, not very long after that, the next year or two were filled with other sort of knocks and smacks and health challenges that you describe in the book as really being a wake-up call. So tell me about that.
Yeah, so when Yuna came and the birth was fine, everything was good, I actually fell back into a second depression, unfortunately, and this whole wonderful feeling of being in ease when I was knocked out disappeared. But this happened after the birth, so it was a constant actually falling down into, I call it mud bucket, and being drained back into depression. This was something that happened over the summertime, and then I realized, how do I get out? And I used the techniques that I've learned from my first depression. But then the other things and calls were physical symptoms that have been really, really weird. Because when it came to the autumn time, I had problems with. I first thought it was an ordinary cold. Which ended up being a proper, like a lung infection, lung disease. So the last day of the year, I was in the hospital while I was on holidays, and they said, "Hey, you have a proper lung infection, and you need to take antibiotics and all these kind of things." And I came out of the pharmacy with a big bunch of different, I think 4 or 5 different packs, which I took. But after the treatment, it came back. And I thought, so this was all for nothing. And then I realized, okay, there must be something else that I should better listen to what's happening, And then there was an ear infection, which I'm a diver, and since I started diving in 2000, I never had really problems with compensation, never ever had an ruptured eardrum. And this time it was so bad that my eardrum ruptured while I was lying in bed. And I felt and this was in springtime, just a couple of weeks later. And I felt what is this? It was so painful that, I had the feeling that someone puts a needle into my ear. Wow. I was crawling on the floor, and while Caroline was calling my dad, who was a doctor, and he was super relaxed because he's used to other emergencies. He's like, well, what can I do now from Germany? Not really much. And then the pain was left, but then I had vertigo, and I had all the symptoms that you typically have when you rupture your eardrum. So that was another call where I thought, like, wow, what is that? Yeah.
Wow. So we'll get into in our next interview with Life After Trauma. I think you're sharing about your experience with depression and what it feels like to be, immersed in that mud bucket, as you call it, is really quite telling. But I think what's interesting about the story that you share in Magic and Miracles is like the succession of events, like all these things happening to your physical body. It's as if the depression is like an emotional symptom, but you were also having physical symptoms where your immunity was down and you're getting these repeat infections. For someone young and healthy, that it seems like, why is this happening, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So another thing was that in that time, I also, because of the new situation of having a second kid, I was arguing with Caroline quite a lot, which I kind of think is pretty normal because it's a new situation now, more responsibility. Having two kids is a different story than having one. And then I got neurodermitis. So I had this skin started to get skin problems. And I could really feel that this skin problem, the itchiness and all these things start to flourish and to come up when I was stressed. So whenever I had the feeling of stress, this started to get really annoying and was spreading over like my arms, which started like here and on the other side. And I mean, I'm a person who studied sports science, and I'm very interested in all these kind of things. And I think it's a common thing that people know that your skin actually responds to emotions and your mental well-being. And then I realized, of course, there is quite a lot of things going on in my mind that is not really or doesn't feel comfortable. So. And I saw or took this as another call of thinking what was going on. And then there was an event in Alicante. And so the things came together step by step, which was for me a blessing, to be honest.
Yeah, it's amazing that you have such perspective, that you're able to look at it as a blessing, because that, for most people, that would be a lot of trauma, back to back to back to back with the arrival of a new baby and then these repeat infections and, feeling like that depression was sucking you back down. That's a lot to take on. Plus, life. You're running your own business, you and Caroline there in Spain. So take us to this year, 2018. You share also a little bit about how you and I met and some other amazing people, thanks to our friend Steiner and Stig Stephans in Alicante, Spain, at the European Transformational Teachers Gathering. And that seemed to be, at least for this year, your story is ongoing, it's unfolding, but this year was also a big shake-up for you, right? Like your life has also changed in the last few weeks.
Yes, big time. So Alicante was let's say the positive and very comfortable water bucket where the last drop, let's say, filled it. It made me realize, okay, I need to change something, but drastically, not just little things. There need to be a big change. So I got an invitation and email newsletter from Stig, which I follow since a couple of years with his breathology movement. And he mentioned this event from Steiner. And I have been on coaching events the last couple of years, and I love learning, and I like events. But this one was very different because he had this claim that this was not an event to really make people on stage selling products or services. It's more to focus on people and focusing on the heart connection of people, and he even said, I want to create lifelong relationships between people. And I said, oh, wow, that's a big claim. I mean, I said, how can you really plan this, and how can you make this into an event? Is this possible? I thought this was not possible at all. But when I went to the event, I firstly felt super happy and welcome. And there was this vibe of this community, which was so warm and welcoming, that I have to admit that constantly over each talk and being in this crowd made me admitting that Steiner was right, that he was really true.
Yeah, and it sounds like after being in that environment, having these deep connections, you started putting more and more of the pieces together from all of these various signs that your body or the universe or life was giving you. And you decided, okay, that big change in your life was tied to work and what you were doing in your business, right?
Yes, absolutely. So I met several people. I met and saw people on stage like you, and I realized, okay, these days were so intense that I needed quite a few days and weeks, and I'm still digesting what has happened there, because this was for me like a milestone, definitely, because it made me really to get and take action and to really change something, which ended up selling the business I was running with Caroline, which is sold. So and this was a process of the last 6 months, and I'm happy that the event in Alicante was, let's say, a proper serious starting point of selling the business. Yeah.
And so now that you have all of this wisdom and you can look back over all of these events, you've shared with me before that now you really want to get out and share more about what happened to you, as you're doing in these books, but also speaking on stage, coaching people, offering workshops to help other people who are trying to figure out all the craziness of our lives, right?
Yes, absolutely. So I want to share the things that I've learned over the past, and it's not only about the kind of painful things, because the disease is kind of painful, but on the other hand, it's, I think, a great way to learn something about yourself, and it was, I think, the most intense and deep experience that I learned about me. And so with also being a diver and being a water person who loves to be submerged and be around with the water, I realized that I was feeling best during my stressful times and depression when I was in water. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean that you need to be really diving. It's enough when you're just floating, when you're around, like being in your mama's womb. I mean, we were created in liquid, right? I mean, so that's, I think, what a lot of people forget. And being surrounded by this is such a great stress relief, and combining this with proper breathing methods and awareness that I would like to create in people of looking at their lives and having the chance to support a change process in people. That's one of my dreams, where I think, okay, it's definitely worth putting the puzzle pieces together and sharing it. Yeah. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense, I think, to keep it just for myself.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I love that you're tapping into your heart of compassion, knowing what you've been through, which, again, we'll get into in another interview. But I love that you're bringing all of it together in a way that you can help people by hosting retreats in Mallorca, and hopefully I'll be doing one of them over there someday soon. But I think this is really wonderful, and I want to honor you first and foremost for being willing to share, because there aren't a lot of men who talk about their experience with depression or their confusion with where they are in life, you know. So I just want to honor you for doing this.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you very much for supporting me so much, because I knew that if I want to do something that reaches a lot of people, I knew that I also need people and partner and supporters next to me, because that is also much more fun. Yeah. Because I don't need to do things alone. I think it's always that everything is created within a community or with other people. Some people might not admit that, but I think that's just it's just the way it is. It's always someone with someone or a group of people.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, my friends, I hope that you will connect with Stephan. You can check him out online. He's on Facebook, and you can also check him out at stephanconradi.com. I will include the links to your social media and website profiles in the description here. So check out his story in Magic and Miracles. And Stephan, I look forward to seeing how things continue to unfold in your life, in your business life, and certainly with our collaborations as well.
Well, thank you very much for this beautiful conversation.
Thank you. All right, my friends, there you have it. I hope that this has been a fun interview for you to get a sneak peek into the author's mind. Please do support him by getting a copy of the book and check him out online. Until next time, remember, my friend, you are a gift to the world. So share your presence with passion. Much love. Bye. Did you enjoy that interview? I sincerely hope so. If you did, remember to click that like button and share this video with someone else who needs a little positivity sprinkled into their life. And please do support the author by purchasing the book at your favorite bookstore. If you or somebody you know would like to spread your own message to the world, then check out our publishing options online at makeyourmarkglobal.com. We specialize in helping healers, coaches, lightworkers, and other soulful entrepreneurs who want to share their message with a global audience. We also do speaker training and authentic personal branding. I look forward to connecting with you again, and until then, remember, my friend, you are a gift to the world. So share your presence with passion. Much love.